This is the Washington Times front page for Tuesday, July 13th, 2021. Thanks for joining us. I'm George Gerbo. The biggest anti-regime protests in decades have swept over Cuba as pressure mounts on Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel's authoritarian control of the Caribbean island. Guy Taylor reports thousands of Cubans marched on Havana's Malecon Promenade and elsewhere on the island to protest food shortages and high prices during the pandemic. The mainly state-controlled Cuban economy reportedly shrank by more than 10% last year. With videos of the protests flooding global media, Diaz-Canel finds himself under the microscope. In power for barely 2 years, he's Cuba's first communist leader not named Castro and facing a direct and popular challenge to the legitimacy of the 62-year-old regime. Internet outages were frequent across the island as authorities targeted the social media sites that helped swell the protests. Many young people in an increasingly digitally connected Cuba view the civil liberties restrictions there as outdated and draconian. At the White House, President Biden met with state and local leaders to urge them to use billions of dollars from the coronavirus relief package to hire more police officers. White House correspondent Jeff Murdoch reports Biden called on leaders to use the $350 billion set aside for states in the relief plan to bolster overtime pay and spend on community policing strategies. Law enforcement officials, however, say funding can't offset the exodus of officers that they tie to plunging morale and demands for broad defunding of police. They're looking for a recruitment strategy to sell police jobs to qualified applicants. Cincinnati, Philadelphia, Albuquerque, and Kansas City are among the cities that have used funds or intend to use the money to bolster police staffing, according to a White House memo. On Capitol Hill, America's dwindling domestic shipbuilding industry has lawmakers worried about the Navy's ability to keep up with China and Russia. Congressional reporter Joe Clark reports both domestic and Republican lawmakers agree that the service must make strides toward building a larger fleet. Reaching the goal, however, is hobbled by a domestic shipbuilding industry that's been in decline since the mid-1990s. The Navy currently operates just 4 public shipyards tasked with maintaining the nuclear-powered fleet, and roughly 20 private shipyards certified to build and maintain the service's conventionally powered ships. The shipbuilding industry's decline dates to the end of the Cold War, which led to a smaller U.S. military and a reduced supporting industrial base. A reminder that you can find all these stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page. Don't have access to the Times yet? Visit WashingtonTimes.com/George and get 25% off your annual subscription. Speaking of shipbuilding, Pentagon officials say they're confident in the new Gerald Ford class of Navy supercarrier, but have an eye on China, which is rapidly constructing its own carrier. After a troubled debut, Mike Glenn reports the first-in-class USS Gerald Ford is undergoing final testing and maintenance checks as it prepares for its maiden deployment as early as next year. The Ford and the supercarriers that will follow replace the Nimitz-class carriers, which have played prominent roles in conflicts around the world for more than 40 years. They will carry the Navy's most advanced aircraft, and officials say they can integrate future manned and unmanned aircraft with minimal alteration to the ship. As for China, Pentagon officials refer to the country often as its primary pacing challenge, and analysts say its new Type 003 carrier marks another leap forward in their advance as a naval power. And finally, pop singer Britney Spears' battle over her conservatorship has attracted the attention of Capitol Hill. Congressional reporter Mika Solner talked with Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz, who said Spears' legal battle to regain control of her life and her estimated $60 million fortune sheds light on an injustice against Americans. He's working on legislation with Utah Congressman Burgess Owens that would create a federal cause of action for people who are abused in conservatorship or guardianship. Spears has been under the legal control of her father, Jamie, for 12 years. A California court ordered the conservatorship after Spears suffered a mental breakdown in 2008 that resulted in hospitalization and rehabilitation. A report by the National Council on Disability estimates that at least 1.3 million Americans are under guardianship or conservatorship orders. Find all of today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or the Washington Times app, and subscribe for free to the front page. Just search Washington Times on your favorite podcast platforms. You can also follow along on Twitter and Instagram with the Washington Times for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. Just search @WashTimes. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.